Hi, this is the second part of a video taking a closer look at the common characteristics and features associated with pathological demand avoidance syndrome. Educationally, most children will underachieve at school, falling short of what is perceived that they are capable of. They commonly produce only the bare minimum of work, which is frustrating for their teachers who know that they could do so much better if only they tried. Some children will keep a very low profile at school, trying to blend in to avoid any demands being made, but can then become disruptive when they receive unwanted attention. Others are a handful all the time and can lose it under the load of a demand, kicking, shouting, swearing, turning over tables, and potentially resorting to physical threats and actual violence. For some, this may occur only with certain members of staff, or it may not happen in school at all, where they maintain a role of the good child, only to explode when they get home. In any case, there is unlikely to be equal compliance at school and at home. If not understood, this can lead to a belief that poor behaviour is somehow linked to inadequate handling in the home. This in turn can put incredible pressure on parents and cause tensions or even breakdown in the home-school partnership. Most teachers will notice the huge variability in temper, noting Jekyll and Hyde mood swings, but incorrectly identify all of this as naughtiness or as an anger problem, rather than it being caused by anxiety. There is little consistency in the children. Mood can change minute by minute, but there can also be periods of relatively settled behaviour which suddenly break down or regress. Often this will be due to minor changes in the background anxieties that are often enough to tip them over the edge. One small extra anxiety being enough to break the camel's back, rather than it being due to a specific identifiable trigger. It took us some time to connect that our son's behaviour, both at home and at school, would always deteriorate for up to a week before attending a friend's birthday party. This ratcheted up the background pressure, and then an almost infinite number of trivial demands that could normally be coped with did have the potential to trigger a meltdown. I think it's important to stress that PDA is not a learning difficulty, neither is it a problem of intellect. Learning difficulties and a range of other problems can coexist or be comorbid with PDA, but they are in addition to and not a result of the underlying PDA. You could easily argue that avoiding demands is a skill rather than a weakness. How many times do we wish that we could find a way of getting out of doing something that we dislike? So fundamentally, it's not that the avoidance of demands that is the problem. It's the perception of what difficult demands are that causes the difficulties. Therefore, PDA is perhaps best understood if it's not thought of as a list of skills that are impaired or absent, but as a cognitive style, or a way of understanding and engaging with the world, or an approach to learning about it. Many PDAs will be kinesthetic learners with a hands-on style and often have creative, practical or artistic talents. Many have an eye for detail, along with systemising and folk science skills. And by folk science skills I mean that they often have an intuitive feel for how things work or go together through practical common sense rather than having an academically scientific mind. Many children are impulsive and impatient and seem to spend much of their time on some or other urgent mission. Ideas will come into their heads instantly and have to be executed just as quickly. They can be obsessive with their need to follow through with an idea and can be hard to dissuade once their minds are made up. Furthermore, when following an impulse or avoiding demands, they seem to lack the inhibitions that they otherwise experience. Ordinarily, they may well be concerned that they are liked by or impress their peers, yet at the same time they can lack pride or shame when being avoidant. The same child that would normally be embarrassed by something minor will also throw a tantrum in the middle of a shopping precinct or in front of a whole school, seemingly without regard or concern. Sensory issues are quite common in PDA. For example, many children would despair of finding clothes that don't itch, aren't too tight, or have buttons in the wrong places. Most t-shirts and jumpers will need their labels cut out before they are worn, and persuading a child to wear anything other than their favourite clothes will be a nightmare. Add these sensory issues together with demand avoidance, and you will not be surprised to know that getting dressed can be one of the biggest daily battles you face. Surprisingly though, the same clothes that cause so much angst in the morning will be shed with equal reluctance in the evening, and it seems that many children will go through a phase of sleeping in their clothes at night. Personal hygiene can also be a serious issue, hair washing, baths and teeth cleaning all being huge problems for many. The resistance has to be seen to be believed. Now some of these issues, will wax and wane and may not be present for all parents, but they do represent the epic struggles that are common to all of us. Many of these struggles are not unusual with any boy or any girl, and in fact many behaviours discussed here are common to some degree with all children. What is unique with PDA is the frequency, intensity and repetition of the same old problems. Despite carrot and stick incentives, bribery, coercion, hardline sanctions or even gently approaches, the PDA child just does not seem to learn. However, when breakthroughs do occur, they can be sudden and the child can show a dramatic degree of catch-up. Many children will become excessively tearful over minor incidents and injuries, and there is a tendency for them to be a little ungainly or accident prone. Generally, there are not major issues with motor skills, but a lack of refinement and cack-handedness is common. Many of our children are very sociable and outgoing, but they can also be painfully shy. They can be incredibly strong-willed and cocksure, but lose confidence at a stroke. They demand avoidant themselves, but place huge expectations on others. They can appear to have empathy beyond their years and be highly sensitive and caring, and yet oblivious or desensitised to their impact on others. So take the good and the bad from any regular child, multiply it tenfold, and you have a taste of living with PDA. It is a world that doesn't add up, and it doesn't make sense, especially when you measure it against what is thought of as being normal. And normal is not a term I like. It really just means average, common, or middle of the road. But it has connotations that normal is best, and places value on conformity, sameness, and disregards diversity. People with PDA, and especially children, are likely to be some of the most challenging and unfathomable you will ever come across, but they are potentially some of the most rewarding as well. In many ways, the person with PDA will appear to be full of paradoxes and contradictions, remaining a puzzle to many. But if, however, you begin to see the world through a PDA lens, you will have a small insight into their world. If you have learned nothing else, please remember that largely these children do not choose to behave the way they do. What you see is a person unable to cope with the anxieties triggered by the everyday demands of life. They need help, but above all they require understanding. With understanding, you stand a chance of building them up, but without it, all you will do is knock them down. Thank you for watching.